Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the security agent who checked Mohammed Atta on September 11, the leader behind the 9/11 terrorist attack, thought, if this doesn't look like two Arab terrorists, I've never seen two Arab terrorists before. But he thought that these ideas were racist, so he didn't subject them to further security checks. Ladies and gentlemen, thousands of people died as a consequence. Ladies and gentlemen, we define that this House would allow police officers and airport security to use the racial, ethnic, and religious characteristics of people as a reason to merit added security checks as possible suspects of terrorism in airport security and check-in. These will be in keeping with the constructed set of characteristics or behaviors based on race and religion that correlate with the characteristics of known terrorists. This does not mean that people who do not fulfill set characteristics but behave suspiciously, such as being very nervous or with unusual travel patterns, cannot be subject to added security measures. Additionally, this does not mean that people will be arrested, but only will be investigated and maybe interrogated. We will be addressing four main arguments. The first two, which I will be addressing, are the needle in the haystack and passenger profiling as a way to prevent terrorism. Afterwards, my teammate David will talk about how this is a less hassle for the majority of flyers and how we must make certain sacrifices. Moving on to my first argument. The needle in the haystack, ladies and gentlemen. Focusing resources will lead to better security. Why? Because airport security is finding the illicit needle in a haystack. In all of the thousands of people who travel from each airport every single day, they must find the one that is going to commit an illicit crime, ladies and gentlemen. So why not reduce the size of the haystack? No, thank you, sir. Because based on characteristics that correlate with known characteristics of terrorism, we can reduce the size of the haystack without making sure that we do not bypass people who are going to commit illicit crimes. Because what we right now are trying to do is finding a needle in a haystack the size of Russia, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you, sir. We currently assume that all passengers are equally risky, ladies and gentlemen. And by thinking that all passengers are equally risky, we're using security personnel and equipment in the airport in a truly non-efficient way, ladies and gentlemen. We are checking to see whether Swedish nuns are smuggling explosives into an airplane, ladies and gentlemen. So what happens, well, I'll take you in a second, sir. What happens if we make the haystack smaller, ladies and gentlemen? What happens is that security is better focused. Yes, sir.
On what basis can you tell us that the two nuns aren't going to commit the crime?
Thank you, sir. I believe that two Swedish nuns are not really the profile of an airplane bomber, ladies and gentlemen, because most of the terrorist attacks we have been seeing in the past years have been committed by young people of certain religious or racial characteristics, ladies and gentlemen. And let's face it, if we continue to detain Swedish nuns, we are pulling away the focus from the people who we should be focusing on. The resources are not well focused. By focusing on people which fit this criteria, we can ensure better security. Why? Because these people will have more people and more equipment to make sure that they are not a threat to security, ladies and gentlemen. And by doing this, we'll be reducing the chance of terrorism. Now, an aviation security expert recently stated, you cannot check every single person for explosives. Airports would just bring to a halt. Why? Because there are not enough resources to focus really well on every single one of these people. And by focusing only on those who we know may be a threat, we'll be making sure that terrorism does not happen, ladies and gentlemen. Now, moving on to my second argument, the prevention of terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, behavior pattern, which is a part of our definition, has successfully stopped fake identification, drug smuggling, and illegal immigration, ladies and gentlemen. What does this show us? That profiling actually works. Profiling actually works in finding people who are going to commit crimes, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, thank you, sir. And why not take it a step further? Why not submit people to greater security checks if they fit a certain criteria which we associate with terrorism, ladies and gentlemen? Because experts agree that further profiling could bring benefits, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because by reducing the haystack, we'll be making sure that those people who may be committing crimes will be stopped, ladies and gentlemen, instead of focusing all of our resources and all of our efforts into people who have almost no chance of committing crimes. Yes, sir.
Is this new system going to get rid of the old system, or are you going to combine universal security with the PROP1?
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned, this only brings forth added security checks. Basic security checks will continue existing, but by having added security checks to just a certain amount of people, we'll be ensuring better focused resources and making sure that people who are more in keeping with committing crime be detained. Ladies and gentlemen, current proceedings are not sufficient enough to identify all potential bug components. Ladies and gentlemen, what this shows us that we actually need to focus these efforts further. We need to focus these efforts further in order to bring security to our airports, in order to make sure that we'll be bringing forth security, because we'll be adding security. And let's face it, the cost is not great. Maybe some people will have to go through added security checks. But what is this? Ladies and gentlemen, we are not arresting them. We are not subjecting them to cavity searches, ladies and gentlemen. It is just a simple added security check, such as checking their backs further, interrogating them. Ladies and gentlemen, no, thank you, sir. The cost, the benefits outweigh the cost. Maybe some people will have to go through these further security checks, but in general, we'll have more security, ladies and gentlemen. As a security agent who checked Mohammed Atta said, let's face it, most terrorists fit a certain racial and religious criteria. And because of our social construct, that we need to be politically correct, that we need not be maybe a little bit that accept that some people are more apt to commit crimes than others, that we are not stopping crime that could happen, ladies and gentlemen. It is for these reasons that we need a better focused security, that we need better security in our airports, and that we need to make sure that terrorism is best fought, that I beg this House to propose this motion. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.